Chapter 20. Stella d'Amours. Murchison ordered some drinks. Despite Thomas's insistence, he wanted nothing more to do with them, particularly at £50 a glass. So Murchison ordered several bottles of the stuff and told him to shut up. "I must say, Thomas," said Jameson, "this lawsuit is quite remarkable. I've never seen a case like it. It really is unprecedented." "Jameson likes unprecedented things," Murchison said. "It allows him to pave the way." "Pave the way for what?" Thomas asked. "The future," said Jameson. "The past, and the small unimportant bit joining the two." "I don't understand." "You don't have to." "Then why am I here? I currently have neither the physical or physiological resilience to deal with any of this." Jameson peered at him. "How's the psychoenteritis?" Thomas swore. "I do not have psychoenteritis, all right? It's a made-up condition to discredit my writing." "I thought your writing did that well enough by itself." "Yes, but not to the extent that they'd like." Jameson looked at his colleague. "You're right. He doesn't stand a chance." Murchison nodded and looked at a bread roll. "What do you mean I don't stand a chance?" Jameson leant forward. "Thomas, how many times have you appeared in court so far?" "Oh, because of my books or on unrelated charges?" "Your books." He shrugged. 8? 13. 13. "And how do you feel about the final hearing?" Another shrug. "At this moment my life's so dreadful that I just don't care. I've had a dreadful night. I did something dreadful. I woke up feeling dreadful, did something dreadful to my bollocks, and then urinated on my bed. So I'm expecting the final hearing to be along similar lines." Jameson turned to his colleague again. "He's past caring. I can't work with this." But Murchison shook his head in reassurance. "Thomas went out last night, that's all." "What, as in socially?" "Yes. But not with friends, obviously." "Obviously, and I don't think it went very well." "What makes you say that?" "Because he can't remember it." Jameson grunted. "In my experience, that sounds like an ideal evening." "Well, that's what I said." Thomas glared at them. "I am still here, you know." "Yes, but you no longer care," Murchison said. Thomas shrugged. "Well, that should hardly be a surprise. I told you that earlier, which is why I'm wondering what I'm doing here." "You're here to talk strategy." "But I've told you, I'm in no fit emotional state to do so right now." "All right," said Murchison, breaking the roll. "What about coming up with another reason? You're here because you're hungry, and because you want to remember what you did last night." Thomas blinked at him. "What?" "You're hungry," said Murchison, buttering it, "and you'd like to remember what you did last night." "I am hungry, yes, but I do not want to remember anything about last night, thank you." "You most certainly do." "I do not." And then to Jameson, I do not." "Why are you so adamant?" said Murchison. Thomas sighed. "Because I'm certain it was dreadful." "Which is the very reason you want to remember." "I thought you were a barrister." "I am." "So what's with all this psychological bollocks?" Murchison smiled. "Thomas, being a barrister is not just about siphoning off inheritances." "No?" "No, it's about ensuring people are grateful when you do so." Some food arrived. It steamed expensively and was accompanied by several more bottles labelled in French, which rang a vague bell. A large plate was placed before Thomas. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Tradition dictates that you eat it," said Murchison. "Are you sure this is supposed to be eaten? It looks expensive." "It is expensive, and it's delicious. Don't worry, it's insured." "Insured?" "Yes." "What do you mean it's insured?" "I mean that this place has such expensive food that it's insured before it leaves the kitchen." "You're joking." "Of course I'm joking. Now eat it before it depreciates." Thomas ferried great forkfuls into his mouth, which he chewed with the sort of fervour that can only be described as disrespectful. He stopped then, mid-chew, and stared across the table. Murchison and Jameson looked at him. "You've remembered something?" Murchison asked. Thomas recommenced chewing thoughtfully. "Yes, I think last night had something to do with Janice." "Janice?" A woman who's been helping me.
What, a real one?
Yes.
Helping? In what way?
Well, encouraging me. Murchison frowned.
Is she the one who spat at you?
What? No, of course not. He thought again. I think I did something dreadful to her. Murchison sank his head into his hands.
Thomas, he sighed. You weren't inappropriate again, were you?
Thomas glared at him. No, I was not, thank you very much. I haven't been cautioned for weeks.
Because your consistently growing record of lewd behaviour is not helping.
It is not lewd behaviour. I am socially challenged, remember? There's a big difference, not least of which is the number of syllables. You should know, you're the one who insisted I keep seeing Marjorie.
Marjorie?
Jameson asked, puzzled.
Dr. Marjorie, Murchison said, is a clinical psychiatrist who's
Seeing, said Thomas.
Seeing Thomas on a regular basis after an incident with a young woman in a cafe last year. Look, it's a long story. Suffice to say he's making progress.
An incident? I don't talk about it with anyone except Marjorie, said Thomas. Murchison had me sign a form.
Look, what you need is this,
said Murchison, filling a glass to replace the one he'd filled earlier that Thomas refused to touch. I told you, Murchison, I'm not drinking.
I know, that's the problem.
No, the problem was drinking in the first place.
No, I suspect you drank after the problem arose in order to forget how dreadful it was. And it must have been particularly dreadful if you cannot recall it now you're sober.
Thomas blinked at him. I drank after the problem arose.
In my experience, that's how it begins. The adage, drink to forget, arose for a reason and presumably a dreadful one.
Thomas pondered this.
And therefore, Murchison continued, as much as I would prefer not to, I insist you drink this to remember, because if you don't, then we're going to be ravaged by a self-pity that under the circumstances may consume you, which, from our point of view, would be most inconvenient, considering this case hinges on you remaining functional for its duration at least.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, Thomas, that the only way you're going to recall what happened last night is to let alcohol help you.
But I don't like alcohol.
None of us do, Thomas. None of us do.
Thomas took the bottle and frowned at the label. I think it had something to do with France. Perhaps I insulted her in French, or hit her with a croissant? He stared at them. Or a microwave?
No, you didn't, or I'd have been contacted. But we're going to get nowhere this evening until you remember. You don't need to get drunk, just mellow enough to allow your memory to be careless with what happened, and then we can get on with business.
And you expect me to think straight after drinking this?
Thomas, we've got a meeting to get through, and we need you to be able to concentrate on it without pining over last night.
Thomas leant forward. But I don't want to know.
Well, I do, so drink. Come on, Thomas. Jameson has to be on a plane by 8:30.
Oh, this isn't going to end well, Thomas said, taking the glass.
Maybe not, but I can guarantee it will end better than last night.
How can you guarantee that?
Because you'll remain conscious for a start.